thank you very much for joining us today. It hopefully will be an interesting and important conversation that we're going to have today, mainly about how do we go about tackling the gap skill within bioinformatics. I am joined today by my two colleagues and our experts in bioinformatics from Biomatics. Alexander Senf, who's our senior bioinformatician, and Ana, who's our bioinformatician as well. And also we have the honor and privilege of having Professor Sascha Ott from Warwick University joining the conversation as well. I'll let each one of them give a brief introduction and also maybe share with us a little bit more about their journeys and to how did they come to become bioinformaticians and work in this exciting field of work. Sascha, I will start with you.
Hi, I'm Sascha Ott. I'm a bioinformatics professor at Warwick Medical School, and I lead a research group. I also am the director of our bioinformatics research technology platform. It is a bioinformatics service unit. So I'm organizing bioinformatics for research. I'm also doing bioinformatics for service.
Thank you, Sascha. Alexander?
As you mentioned, I'm Alexander. I'm here as senior bioinformatics engineer with Biomatics, and I'm excited to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Ana?
Hello everyone, I'm Ana and I'm a bioinformatician at Biomatics, working with them for almost 1.5 years now. I have a background in bioinformatics back in India. I worked there for a couple of years and then did my master's here. So hope to see you guys soon.
And myself, so I'm Andreea Iftimia-Mander. I'm the head of Biomatics, and I have the pleasure of working with these very clever people in this exciting line of work, which is not that familiar to me. I come more from a medicine manufacturing, advanced therapeutics background. So I'm learning more and more about bioinformatics and genomics and some of the challenges in this area. And I'm keen that we, as Biomatics, try and help address some of these or become part of this community and work closely with organizations in the UK and on an international level to contribute in some way and to try and make a mark on in this space. Right, I said I will invite each one of you to kind of talk a little bit more about your journeys. I know you all have different stories, and some of them are quite funny, actually. Ana, do you want to kick off
I don't mind.
the conversation?
For sure. So to be honest, I'm not a core bioinformatician. I started the journey as a biotechnologist and did my bachelor's as in my undergrads back in India in biotechnology. And I was a core lab person doing stuff like PCR and all that stuff. But then there was this company who came to our university as for the campus placement. They did an aptitude test. Somehow the other managed to clear that aptitude test. And then they offered me this job. And I was like, are you sure? I've never had an experience with computers and you want me to go. Like, you're the perfect one. It's like, okay, if you're paying me well, I'll go ahead. So yeah, that's how I started my bioinformatics journey. But then it was interesting, it was quite interesting. First couple of months were like very difficult because I had no idea how computers properly work and how coding is done. But I had amazing people around me who helped me a lot. And since then, I've been in this field. It's been 9 years now. Yeah, long journey.
You haven't regretted?
No, I don't regret it at all.
Well, you're here to inspire other people, and
I hope so.
to join this field of work.
Oh, it's an amazing field. It's an amazing field, and it pays you well, so don't worry.
Alexander, do you want to share your journey?
Sure. So I'm sort of come from the other side of the spectrum. My journey started out doing computer science and maths. I went on to do a master's degree in software architecture. But when it went on to go to my PhD, I I had to make a decision on what it is I wanted to focus on. And one of the things I always enjoyed about computer science itself is the applicability of what we're doing to real-life problems. So what I wanted to do was to apply the skills I've gained in computer science to an area where it makes an impact on real life. And one of the other areas I was always interested in, although I've never really pursued it very much, was biology, molecular biology. So that's where I decided for my PhD to do bioinformatics. So I'm coming from the computer science side of you, getting into biology, and I loved it. I've worked in bioinformatics ever since. It was a good choice, and it does really make a difference to people's lives on an everyday basis.
And last but not least, Sascha, do you want to share your journey with us?
Yes, I also studied computer science up to MSc in Germany. And when I came towards the graduation, I realized what I really wanted to do is to practice karate in Japan and stay there for a few years, not just a few months, but for a longer time. And at the time, I didn't have Japanese language skills. And it turned out the only way to facilitate a multi-year stay in Japan was to get a PhD scholarship and do a PhD there. But the requirement for the scholarship that was available was to already have a link to Japan. So I went to all the professors at my home university and says, do you know anyone in Japan? And essentially only one link was there. That link was to a bioinformatics lab in Tokyo. And so I decided, well, then I'll become a bioinformatician. It's called fate.
Karate and bioinformatician. You're definitely breaking a leg, huh?
And here you all are today working in this field of work. And like I said, try to inspire other people to join this exciting field and to help solve some of the challenges and the existing problems that we're currently faced with, which leads me to the next question that we're going to address on the agenda, which is what current challenges exist and how can bioinformatics help resolve some of these challenges? And I'll start with you, Sascha, on this topic.
Yes, so we have, I think, first of all, we have, of course, an amazing possibilities for bioinformatics having impact in a whole range of fields, as I think we're all aware. But to really seize the opportunities and make the most out of them, we do have some real challenges as well. One is, of course, the enormous data sizes that we're up against, but it is not just these petabytes that we're coming towards. It is also the enormous diversity of experimental protocols. There's already a testing diversity of experimental protocols, and it constantly develops on. Every protocol has a little bit of different features. It means the analysis has to be done a little bit differently. Data quality varies a lot between labs. So we have to deal with this vast diversity of data types. We also have to deal with the issue that, of course, a lot of the data that we're dealing with is under GDPR. So a lot of the time we have to be very careful how we store the data, how we process it, how we disseminate or what we disseminate. And when we come to process the data, we are looking at a huge variety of methods, which in a way, of course, is a good thing. It's great that there's so much method development and there's so much movement. But in practice, one concern for me is, if I'm honest, a lot of the time when I'm responsible for data analysis, I don't actually have firm knowledge that I'm really using the best method amongst the ones that are out there. Take the classical task of motive finding. There's just so many motive finding tools out there. Or take pseudotime analysis for single cell data. There are literally hundreds of methods. So how do you know for a given data set and for a specific scientific question that you're picking the best tool out of the box to address this question? If I'm honest, I don't normally know. I have some reason to pick a tool, but I might not make the most out of what is there. So that is another challenge which comes about by, of course, the rapid growth that we're going through at this time. And another problem for us is, of course, that when we hire staff, we actually find that we're having to ask for quite a lot. We have to ask them to have an understanding of biology. We need some mathematical foundations. We need some common sense in statistics. In our field, where we constantly cross scientific boundaries, where we work with, particularly in the service area, work with customers, we need really good interpersonal skills, communication skills, the general professional skills. And if you put all this together, it's actually quite a big ask. So it is a lot of qualifications that we're requiring for people to come into the area. So developing that workforce, of course, is a major challenge.
Yeah, I can see how that can seem a bit daunting for people who are contemplating coming into this line of work. Alexander, what's your opinion on these challenge areas, and in your experience, what have been the main challenge areas that you've had to address as a bioinformatician, or what types of skills have helped you address these?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, I agree with everything Sascha has said. Most of my professional background has handling genomic data. So the sheer size of it, that is really one of the biggest issues we have to address. Coming along with this sheer size are issues like, how do I find the data I actually need? So what is the metadata I need to capture about it? How do I make the data findable? There is the issue of, if I create the same data set 2 or 3 times in different labs, I get slightly different outcomes. So how do I harmonize the data? How make sure that I can interoperate with various data sets? So statistically, how can I align them? And then there's also the multiplicity of formats. So if I store something, I have choices of formats. If you are familiar with bioinformatics, they accept that I have a CRAN file. But that's the tool I'm using. Can it actually read a CRAN file? So is the data that I want to analyze accessible to me in that sense, and accessible to the algorithms I write to analyze it? So one of the huge areas that has come out of this is just the standardization of how data is captured, standardization of what metadata we capture with the data, what formats there are and how those formats are interpreted, what an analysis pipeline actually looks like. So can I write a pipeline and you run it and get the same results as I do? So all of these are issues that are focusing around just dealing with the sheer volume of data that exists, and it's ever increasing. This is one of the big areas where bioinformatics has made great progress, but there's a lot of work left. And there's also statistical issues. Once we do make an analysis, it is in a sense like data science. I have a large amount of data. I want to get statistical insight into that. But in order to have a meaningful insight, I have to also have the biological knowledge. What does this mean? What features are important? Which areas are negligible? Which areas need I focus on? So you do have to have the skills to handle the data, to write the analysis from a computer science point of view. You also have to have the skills in biology to understand what it is you're doing and to produce outcomes that are meaningful. And getting that together, yeah, it is really hard to find people who have both skills to the degree that we really need.
Ana.
Coming back to me. So I absolutely agree with Alexander and Sascha. There's a problem with data management, there's a problem with method accuracy, there's a problem with data integration. Along with all this, there's a problem with data optimization, as in whatever method we use or whatever software we use. Is that software good enough to handle that much amount of data for one sample? We might have n number of methods available with us. But it's not good if that method is taking almost 24 to 48 hours to analyze something. We just don't have one sample to deal with. We have multiple samples to deal with. So we need to make sure that the method that we're implementing is accurate, is efficient, and can handle that much amount of data very easily, and gives the result in the best manner possible. Apart from that, I know bioinformatics is an interdisciplinary field, and it's not just biology that we need. We need mathematics, we need statistics, we need computer science. We need everything. It's so multifunctional. So that actually creates a problem when you're creating a job profile for people, We don't really know what background to focus over, what qualification to focus over. So now when we talk about bioinformatics, we're not just focusing over the qualifications of people or what the background they're coming from. We basically focus on the skills that they have. Do they have the skill sets with them? Do they have the coding skills? Do they have data management skills? Can they apply statistics? They can think logically enough. It's all depending upon the skill. It has got nothing to do with degrees nowadays, but to be honest. You can come from a biological background into the field of bioinformatics. You can come from a computer science background into the field of bioinformatics. You can come from a mathematical background into the field of bioinformatics. We accept everyone.
That's good. It's an inclusive.
It's a very inclusive field.
But I've like I said, I've more recently started to focus on this area and attending a few events such as the Festival of Genomics and an event that I attended just a month or so ago, organized by the Bioindustry Association on there seems to be a big drive to get the wider community to think about these challenge areas and how to resolve them. And it seems like technology is really picking up in terms of software technology and genomics. I mean, we're able to sequence hundreds of thousands of genomes. That's got cheaper. It's not a problem. But it seems to me like this data side of things, we're falling behind in terms of creating the skills and people. We don't have enough people to kind of keep up with the technology. And this is a problem that's not just for this field. I mean, I can make parallels to the advanced therapy sector as well, where there's a similar problem. But the question will be where will we get these future bioinformaticians from? Where will they come from, in your opinion?
Well, as I said,
you said it's an inclusive field.
Yeah, well, I said it's a very inclusive field. So we can get bioinformaticians from any field, to be honest. You just have to show us that you have the skills, that you'll be able to do it, and you can deal with that kind of pressure, because it really gets onto you sometimes when you don't get results, things that you want in time, and then it's taking a hell lot of time to analyze the data, and you're not able to handle that on the service. So you just have to be passionate about what you're doing. You get bioinformaticians from the field of mathematics, computer sciences, biological sciences. What I personally think is when we're focusing on qualifications, we should actually be implementing stuff like, for instance, if I talk about a computer science graduate, there should be a field, or there should be a small course that they should do in the fields of biology also, because computer science is not just limited to one niche. It is something that is available and it can be expanded. And when I talk to computer science people, for instance, if I even talk to my other siblings, they don't have anything to do with biology, and they really don't think that biology can be dealt with computers. But at the end of the day, they have a sibling who can do that. So they should be introduced to it. They should be made aware that it's not just technological. IT field is not something that they should be focusing over only. They can also move on to different other fields, different other sectors. They can move into statistics. They can move into biology. They can move into other different kind of places. It's available. You can do it. And same goes with biological people. Biology doesn't always mean that you have to work in a laboratory. You have to get your hands dirty. No, you don't have to. You can get your hands dirty very cleanly. So yeah, that I think being a very inclusive and interdisciplinary field, we can get bioinformaticians from everywhere. But you should be trained enough. You should be skillful enough to handle the data, analyze the data, and handle the pressure, obviously.
Yeah. Before I let Sascha and Alexander answer this question, I just wanted to mention that there are a couple of polls, actually. I failed to mention this at the beginning of the meeting. So if you go into the activities section at the bottom of the screen is the very furthest button on the right-hand side, the one that has like the geometrical shapes. Sorry if I'm teaching anybody how to suck eggs, but if you're not familiar with the platform, as I wasn't until this morning, that's where the polls are. So there is currently a poll in there asking you to vote on whether you think it's easier to enter the bioinformatics field from maths background or biology background. And there's also another poll below that where we're going to address this question a bit later on in our conversation. So don't feel like you have to vote on that just yet. But if you want to, you can, and then we'll look at the results in the questions at the end. Sascha, where will the future bioinformaticians come from your point of view in academia? What do you see in terms of students and you know, I don't expect you to speak from the point of view of other universities, but what's happening at Warwick in this area? Where do the future bioinformaticians tend to come from at the moment?
So in my experience, it looks much more like we will have many more bioinformaticians coming from the life sciences than from any of the computational mathematical sciences. Simply because, for one reason, because there's pressure from industry to hire mathematicians, statisticians, computer scientists is so great that it's very hard to compete with that. And I've been in the computer science department at Warwick for a few years, and I've seen tutees who come in and in term one of year one already apply for an industry placement in banking. I've had a tutee who 2 years before graduation has signed a permanent contract, employment contract in cybersecurity. So the pressure on getting these graduates is really high. And also I find that a lot of these graduates, they already come into university primed to go that pathway. So it's not even so easy to sort of try and divert them or interest them in computational biology. I've done a computational biology module for years in the computer science department, but it rarely leads to students changing their career paths even after making that experience. So also another point of a problematic point is I often find that mathematicians particularly find it hard to make the jump into biology because they come from a framework where everything is well defined. Everything is clear, everything is absolutely defined. And in biology, we have a lot of notions that are a little bit fuzzy, where everything sort of has an exception, and there's a lot of things we don't know where we have to improvise. And that's, I think, quite uncomfortable for a lot of mathematicians, so that they don't really like to take that plunge. That's why I think life science is the more likely source in the future. Ironically, I think actually that coming from life sciences is actually harder regarding the poll question we've put out. When I talk with a lot of colleagues back in systems biology days, have equally pulled in from maths and biology, we found the students who came from the maths background had an easier time because they were essentially already building on the analytical skills. They had learned these hard skills, and then they took information on biological systems. Whereas the biology students, they had to learn completely new ways of thinking. How do you program a computer? How do you solve equations? There's a very much an analytical and conceptual training that they have to undergo. So I actually think that it's easier to come from the maths, but at the same time, I don't think that's going to be the major pathway for us. I think it's going to be the life sciences.
Thank you. Alexander.
That sort of mirrors my experience as well. In my professional experience, the colleagues I've been working with in bioinformatics predominantly came from a life science background. And oftentimes it's just the journey that you work with biological data. You have to use computer science tools to analyze them. And that gets people interested in the theory and the tools behind that. And then they end up writing software that makes it easier to analyze biological data. It is a bit more rare from my personal experience that people from a computer science background come and then move into the bioinformatics area. However, I've also seen it that people who have been hired as regular programmers got interested in what we were doing in the bioinformatics area of the work and wanted to learn more about that. So that there's journeys that happen in both directions, but predominantly in my experience, it has been from the life sciences. Another set of experiences that I have, though, I live in an area where there's a lot of life science companies around, and they're not only looking for highly skilled employees, they also have to deal with a sort of entry-level skill sets. So you have machines, you produce a lot of data. There's a lot of tasks that have to be done to this data at the very beginning of the life cycle before they get stored in a repository, before they can be analyzed. So people also find it hard to find entry-level skills, or people interested in entry-level bioinformatics careers. And what we found is when you go to high schools and you ask people for career options, basically nobody has even heard what bioinformatics is at that stage. So if you are in high school and you are about to choose a career, that rarely comes up as an option simply because it's not known about. So one of the things we also try to do is to publicize what bioinformatics is to younger audiences so that they get interested from an early stage on. And we also have started an apprenticeship program in the city where I live, which is very successful actually. And so we also get future bioinformaticians coming in at the low end, at the junior level, and which is a great development.
I just wanted to mention before we move on with the conversation, I've seen a couple of you put in questions in the chat. Please keep doing that, and we will aim to answer all of those questions in the last bit of the session. So feel free to keep writing questions, and we will address them in the discussion at the end. You've kind of all touched a little bit upon this already, but can you, in your own personal experiences as well, what hurdles have you encountered and limitations in your journeys to becoming bioinformaticians, or where do you see any hurdles in becoming a bioinformatician? Ana?
So to be honest, I said that it's a very inclusive field, but back 10 years back, if I talk about bioinformatics, and I just talk with my own family, it was so difficult for my family to believe that I was doing biology and computers. First of all, the idea of doing computers by a girl, that shocked my father. I went in there, I have an offer letter, and they pay me well, and I am doing this. And he said, what in the world is that? First you opted for biotechnology, now you opted for bioinformatics. What is that? And I told him in the layman's word, it's biology and computers. It's like, computers and you. And I was like, whoa, Dad.
Give me some credit.
Exactly. I literally cleared out of so many people. And there's my dad saying, computers and girls. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's also a notion that people have, and you really have to overcome that notion. And I'm not saying that it hasn't changed since then. It has changed a lot. A lot of development has happened around, a lot of awareness has happened around it. But 10 years back, it wasn't there. People still thought that girls is well suited when it comes to science, they're well suited for biology, doing the laboratory work, and the guys are well suited for computer sciences and dealing with the computers. But that's not true. Both of them can equally do any of that kind of work. Boys can do biological laboratory work, and you see that nowadays. And girls can do the computer science work, and you have so many IT companies led by women. So that was one hurdle, because of genders. So gender biasness was there back in 10 years back. Since then, it has improved a lot, because when I did my master's recently in bioinformatics, there was a balance of girls opting for bioinformatics and a balance of boys opting for bioinformatics. But that is so at a junior level. When you go up at the higher level in the hierarchy, if you go up, so I didn't have a lot of professors that were ladies teaching bioinformatics. There were so many male professors just teaching bioinformatics, and that's how it is. I don't know what exactly is the reason behind it. Probably it's the same, the gender. It's like 10 years back. Obviously, you'll have professors who have 10 years or 20 years of experience now. And maybe in the near future, I'll be able to see more of female professors teaching bioinformatics. But yeah, that's what it is. People have started adapting to it at the lower level, but it has to still go up and be adaptable to the higher levels.
Yeah, so we're going to touch more upon the diversity in the sector as well in a second, but yeah, some good points made there, Anna, that I'll come back to. What about your experience, Alexander? What hurdles have you encountered or can see as obstacles at the moment in
Well, so I was lucky enough to not encounter any hurdles myself as I tried to enter the field of bioinformatics. So it was my choice, and I was lucky enough that it was available at my university. But even before even choosing that as a field, one of the biggest hurdles is simply the knowledge of the field, what it is, what it does, what is important, what is your work like after that. In my experience, there's sort of a gap of knowledge. So people may have heard of bioinformatics. They don't know what it is. They don't know if they would like it. They don't know what it entails. So that's one of the things that has to be overcome. The other one is if you don't start out learning bioinformatics from the ground up, you start out learning one of the either computer science or biology, and then you have the choice that if you want to add another skill to it, you're suddenly becoming an entry-level person in that skill level again. So is that a choice you want to make? When you could go on as just a programmer or just as the person working in biological sciences.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a huge step. And we see that when we try to hire people as well. It is often not that difficult finding people with skills in one of the areas, but then finding a
Combination.
A blend, I would call it, of the skills that would work for the jobs they're looking for. That is really hard. And I think that the biggest hurdle is to get experience enough in both of the fields for the job market.
Sascha, I know that you have a really interesting view on this as well, and you've encountered some of this, you know, in your work with students and in training students so far. So please share your views on this.
Yeah, as Ana and Alex have said, one main challenge arises from the fact that we have essentially single disciplinary training in university level. I know there are some exceptions to this, but for the most part, people learn one discipline up to the BSc, maybe up to the MSc even. And then it's a bit of an issue, of a competence issue, to just join into another area. And there's also something very sometimes dogmatic about people saying, oh, you're not a trained statistician, so maybe you shouldn't do statistics, which of course there's some truth to it, that you need to be careful when you're doing things that you haven't been fully trained for. But the general attitude to say, oh, you're not a statistician, I think that's a really negative attitude, and that causes a lot of problems. You know, you understand what a probability distribution is. You see a data set that follows that distribution, you're in the driving seat. You can deal with that data set. Maybe you can't do all the statistics that are out there, but you can face the particular problem you have. And with a little bit of essentials that you understand well, you may be perfectly fine. So I think it's better to nucleate these things, learn the essentials, the 101, build confidence from there, and then say, well, of course I can do some statistics, of course I can do some programming, and so on. So that overcoming that hurdle and taking that transition, I think, is quite a big deal. And when I came into the field, I also remember a long time ago now, the feeling of being really daunted by the complexity. There's all this lab work that I don't understand anything about, at least at the beginning. There's all the molecular biology, what is transcription, translation, all these things. I never heard about it. And of course, there's so much, also even in the mathematical computational sciences, there's so much literature you never ever get to read. There's these thousands of papers that are published all the time. And you come into this field and you feel a bit like, oh, I'm ever going to get on top of all this? And probably not. And only much later you realize there are a few really fundamental and essential things, like I mentioned in this example of probability distributions, really understanding what they are, how to handle those. There are a few fundamentals that you pick them up well. The perceived complexity of the field goes down a lot, and you become much more able. So realizing that, it's a few fundamentals that you really need to grasp, and then you'll be able to take it from there. That is the big transition. I've trained more than 500 students over the years in computer programming, most of whom started with next to no knowledge in computer programming. And I found a lot of the time students were very stressed, because they knew I need to learn computer programming in order to do my PhD. Right now, I can't do anything, and all I see is an error message. And then building that confidence to say, I'm going to get on top of this error message, that is the really tricky part about the teaching. So yeah, I think it's transcending the boundaries and helping people to transcend it, by making them aware. If you just learn a few fundamentals, you start getting that confidence, and you'll be okay after some time.
Sorry, I think I was muted to counteract the echo we were experiencing earlier. I was saying that's very interesting because that kind of it sounds to me like there's almost an inspirational piece missing. And again, I want to draw a parallel to the advanced therapy sector, like I said. So in my previous role, I worked for Innovate UK as innovation lead for the medicines manufacturing challenge sector. And as part of that work, we were heavily involved in the skill development for the sector, and we funded an apprenticeship program, for example, for advanced therapies. And the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult is an organization that has been leading the agenda on the skills gap for the advanced therapy sector. And they've been immensely successful. So I can't help but wonder if something similar needs to happen for bioinformatics. I don't know who's going to lead that conversation, but what I'm hoping with conversations like this is that we try to shine a light on it, and we try to draw attention on it, and then we try to engage with other organizations, and we try to find a solution. And the inspirational piece where was missing most for the advanced therapy sector and for the medicines manufacturing sector overall, in fact, was we seem to in this, and I can only speak for the UK, right, because this is the country where we looked at this problem, is engaging with children at young enough ages to inspire them, to show them the opportunities, like Ana said, you can come from biology, you can come from maths, you can come from computer science, and you can do bioinformatics. Is giving them that confidence that yes, it might not be easy. It takes several years to kind of gain that competence and confidence, but it's such a rewarding role to do. You're at the forefront of science. You're helping develop the future medicines, the future diagnostics tools. We're understanding so much more about our genomes, the correlations between, how does our environment impact us? We're looking at programs such as the Tree of Life at Sanger, where they're looking at sequencing all species of life in the UK and the islands, and overall, I know there are programs at a global level. It's such an exciting field of work, but we need to talk to children from younger ages, and we need to show them that and inspire them. And this kind of leads me a little bit to what you touched upon earlier, Ana, in terms of diversity in the sector. And again, I want to mention the Bioindustry Association has published this week a report on the diversity in the biotech sector. And, I urge everybody to go and read it. It's freely available. It's very interesting. Read. Clearly, there's been a lot of work that's been done. We're better than we were 10 years ago, as Ana said as well. But I think there's still work to be done. And there is actually one of the polls addresses this question is, do you think that if we keep doing what we're doing at the moment, we're going to close that gap? We're going to solve the diversity problem in the sector? Or what is the diversity problem within bioinformatics? Is there one? And what is it? Is it gender? Is it ethnic diversity? Or is there a problem at all? So I just want to put that question to you as the audience, as the speakers in the panel. Sorry, Sascha.
Yeah, so in my view, we have on the level of PhD students, on the level of postdocs, starting to be on the level of assistant professors, a reasonably good gender balance now. And there are various activities to foster that further. So I'm thinking, if you keep this up, then it will just be a matter of time, and eventually we will achieve gender balance at all levels. We'll have to see if people agree with that, but in my view, I feel like we're doing the right thing. One thing I find in my work is that I find it more often the case that when I talk with female students, that they are lacking confidence. For example, I remember a number of conversations where a female PhD student came to me and says, "Can I really apply for a bioinformatics job? I haven't been doing bioinformatics for all that long. Am I really good enough?" And of course, I'll answer that and I address it and I say, yes, of course, you have all the talent. They need you. Do apply. You'll be just fine. And but I can't recall having this sort of conversation with a male PhD students. They seem to be just coming up with a confidence, whether the skill level is there or not in some cases. And I think, as I said, for the computer programming training, similarly for the career preparation and preparing for job interviews, there's a really important element, particularly for the female students, at least in my experience, to develop and help to establish that confidence. It might not come quite as easily. And this is where I think personal interaction is really important. So you can say to a particular individual, look at what you've done there, see how good it is, compare yourself to 1 year ago, see what a difference it is, see how your trajectory is, see where you're going, see how you're improving. So when you have somebody in front of you and you know them a bit, then you're able to transcend that confidence and help them getting that bit of boost. But this is something you can't just do in general. You need to really work with the individual. And I think that's something that's really important to keep up. I feel, in my experience, at least for females, it is harder. It appears to be harder in some cases to match up the level of confidence with this level of skill.
Thank you for that, Sascha. Can you hear us? Okay. Alexander, I'm curious about your opinion on this.
It is an interesting question. So in my academic and my professional career, I've never really experienced a lack of diversity in terms of ethnic and geographic backgrounds. I was very much, as my demographic always very much was in the minority in the areas I worked in, which was a great experience. It was more so in computer science than in bioinformatics, I have to say, but there is great diversity in terms of origin, I think, in both areas. It is not the same way with gender equality. So that is really something that I feel like we need to actively address. We are doing it at the moment. And in all the places I have worked, both in academia and in industry, there always has been conscious effort to achieve some level of diversity and equality. The degree to which that happened varied in different places, but which tells me we are sort of doing the right thing, but I think we need to work a lot more to achieve it, actually. It's an interesting point to make. If we keep doing the right thing, then I would agree that over time it will even out, but I think we still need a lot of effort from our side to really achieve that.
Yeah, it's that inspirational piece, isn't it? If you don't have enough girls coming into the field, then you won't have as many to choose from to kind of balance it at the other levels. And there's still a problem with the more senior levels, isn't it? Like Sascha said as well, professor professor level in universities, you don't have as many women as you have men, and and it's a common problem for other sectors. I would say within the life science sector, it's not just bioinformatics. And I can see that from my kids' school, because I have children in primary school. You know, there's this tendency to think that girls are better at English and writing and the softer subjects, and science is for boys, or you kind of, and I know it's being addressed, and we're doing more to kind of address this and to close this gender gap, and I think it will be better. I mean, for my kids' generation, I think it will be better, but I don't think we should assume anything. I think we should be very conscious about it and try and work very hard to actually solve this issue. So I'm just going to wrap up quickly. So what are we doing to close the the skill gap? Still focused on the gender issue. You can tell it's close to my heart. So what are we doing as Biomatics to close the skill gap? So we provide bioinformatics services to our clients. So we're there to, not every organization will be able to afford or want or need a full-time position as a bioinformatician. They might just need that resource for a short period of time, or to address a particular project or a particular piece of work that they're dealing with. And that's where we can come in and help support fill that gap. I know somebody put in the chat about internships. So we are actively looking at, for example, working with placement students from universities to come and, work with us as junior bioinformaticians, to help them, give them the right training and to become part of our team. And also we work in partnership with Sascha and with the group of bioinformatics at Warwick. And we're also very keen on innovation, and we're looking at how can we innovate in this space, and what is it that we can do to, like I said at the beginning of the discussion, what can we do to make a difference? Because that's it's all about, right? I think all of us in this conversation are motivated by how can we make a difference. There are a few questions in the chat that I'd like us to address. Right, let's go to the first one. So when looking at bringing people into the area, should we be looking to take a biologist and train them on the computational side, or take someone with computation skills but no experience of the biology and then train them in the biology? That's a very good question, and I think we've kind of discussed on it. But what would be the easier way to do it? Would it be to do biology and then do computer science, or the other way around?
It's the same. If you take a computational side person, obviously it's using biology. If you take a biological side person, it's using computer science. That's the best way to go ahead. But don't say that maybe because bioinformatics is more related to computers than offer a computational science person. No, that's not true. It is also related to biological.
We have examples of both, right? Yeah. So you come from biology and went into computational side of things in bioinformatics. Alexander comes from computer science and has had to.
Yeah. Also, so in my opinion, it depends on what it is you're looking for in a bioinformatician. Is it geared towards computational efficiency of a pipeline, or is it geared towards biological significant results from developing an analysis?
But that's also project-centric, isn't it?
It's project-centric,
but you cannot select a person based on just one project.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you need. Yeah,
what you're looking for. I mean, if you have the option of hiring a biology person or a computer science person, who do you hire to fulfill the need you have? It can be both, but I think it depends on the project you're looking at in each particular one.
I agree, and between the two of you and the sort of projects that we deal with and the work that we deal with, you have complementary skills. So most of the times we involve both of you because you have different things to add to the conversation and to the table. Right. The next question is, with the rise of ChatGPT, and we were just talking about this yesterday, actually, Bard and other AI tools for writing code, does this lower the bar to entry for biologists, non-mathematicians, non-computer scientists? Very good question.
It's not
Sascha, what do you think about this? Because Anne and Alexander have already answered the previous question.
I put one answer in the chat where I argued that I don't think it's going to help much. I know ChatGPT is great at answering some programming questions, and it does even explain the code a little bit. But still, you have to learn how to get there by yourself. You have to learn how to take a problem, analyze it, understand what computational control structures would match that problem. You have to learn to implement them accurately. You have to learn to figure out when something isn't working, how to get from an error message to a working program. In a way, I know the comparison isn't perfect, but in a way, I would argue when you have a calculator, it doesn't really help you much learning maths. And in my view, it's a little bit like that, though I see the comparison has limitations. So I think maybe I will be proven wrong over time, but I think you still have to put the hard work in learning it, and ChatGPT is not really going to take that away.
Good point. So are there any internships available? Well, I'm not aware of any internships, but are there?
So, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're not very frequent, so you have to look for them.
Where would you even start looking for an internship program?
So basically, for internship programs, they always post on their websites when they're coming up with an internship, like for Illumina, they do offer bioinformatics.
So Illumina, for example, which is a big...
Yeah, Broad Institute offers one, National Institute of Health offers one, but obviously it's not that frequent, it's not that often. It's just that when they think they come up with a program, and then you can register for it. But I think I agree that you can go for these internships, you can learn a lot of things, but you can't just learn everything from an internship.
Yeah, no.
You have to practice on your own and be exposed to the industry.
Yeah.
Whatever you learn in the academia is very different from the world of the industrial world. So you have to adapt yourself to the industrial world. These might teach you, they will have the best curriculum possible, and they will teach you everything, but you still have to continuously keep on developing and updating yourself.
Practical experience, right? And that goes for other fields of work as well. I have to give them a shout out. So I had a really interesting conversation with EBI on Wednesday, so the European Bioinformatics Institute, a massive resource for training and information. There's a lot of free data, free resources. They kind of coordinate this conversation around bioinformatics. And again, I'd urge everybody here if you haven't heard about them, please look them up, have a look at their website. It's amazing what they can provide and what they can do. There's also a group called Elixir, which is linked with EBI, which tends to kind of engage academics from all over Europe, and they address a lot of the challenge areas in bioinformatics, but also it's a good resource for training and training courses. I'm aware that we only have 1 minute left. So somebody says that's currently completing an apprenticeship with Sanger. I think a key problem on the university side is that they are too focused on the track skill, as Anna was probably saying just now as well. I think a much better alternative would be an open source program sponsored by the big names that can be done independently, quickly.
That is a good point. So I was involved in creating parts of the curriculum for that apprenticeship with ARU. So a lot of input from industry and academia went into creating this program, which I think it was great, but there still is always, it's a university program, so you have to focus on academic issues as well. So I very much like the idea of pulling the same people who provided input for this program and create an open source type resource for learning as well. But that is a very good idea. I see what can be done with it.
I see that Sascha's tried to respond to some of the other questions. Because we are at time, I just really want to thank, to Alexander, Ana, Sascha, thank you very much for joining this panel discussion. I think it's been very interesting, and some very interesting and important points have been raised. Please, follow us. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to email us. Look at our website. This is not going to be the last event of this type that we're going to organize. We're looking at organizing some other events to address in more detail some of the other topics of interest that we've just touched upon today. But yeah, thank you very much for giving us 1 hour of your time today. Really grateful for that, and hopefully, like I said, this will stir up more conversations, and we'll start to shine a light on how do we address the skill gap in bioinformatics.